Hey, Harrison, just curious on your physical status right now. I know you missed time at the end there. How close were you to getting back, and how are you feeling? Where are you in the process?
Yeah, I mean, it's the very first time I ever had a groin injury. So, it's a tricky thing. Um, when you try to kind of work up and do like explosive movements, kind of that last step, that's usually where you feel it the most, less on a day-to-day basis. But it was definitely getting there. It was close. Still going to be rehabbing probably into the beginning of the off season, but I'm confident I'll make a full recovery.
And as far as the season itself, you finished with an identical record from last year, but this season probably felt a lot different for an abundance of reasons. What do you make of this season as you reflect back on it and the progress made, maybe lack of progress made, and how do you view it as a guy who's had so many different experiences in the NBA from championship to where you are now, not able to make the play-in game?
For us, I think it comes back to the consistency of our process. It's easy to look at, a couple of losing streaks and say, oh, well, if we would have just won a game here, if we would have just won a game there. But that same rationale justifies those same mental lapses that happen in wins and win streaks, right? Just saying that because we won the game, everything that happened in the game justified the means. And, that process should continue to work. So for us, I think it's really consistently, like I said, going through and saying, okay, how do we want to play? How are we winning games? How are we losing games? What's the common theme? And judging that based off what we're doing rather than yeah, I'm sorry, I'm watching Tony up there. He's going ham on his on his screen. Yeah, yeah.
All right, James.
Hey, Harrison, first and foremost, congrats on baby news for you and Brittany. It's awesome
Appreciate
stuff.
that.
Just when you look at this season, how do you rate it as far as the ones here in Sacramento? How do you take that next step as a team, and how do you keep this group together?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it starts with our younger guys. I thought Tyrese had a great year. It's unfortunate, he got hurt because he was definitely setting himself up, in my opinion, to be the rookie of the year. The growth of Chimezi Metu, us finding Damian, the additions of man, my guy Tony's still going ham. The additions of TD, Mo, Delon, really coming in, helping us out. And then, for the group that's been there, us just continuing to develop chemistry. It's a business. Every year, teams change, rosters change, things like that. But as always, a talent is always here. That's what's exciting. That's what's promising. And it's how do we put that together to win and not just continue to push the rebuilding or the growth process back a year or 2 years down the line.
Now, you talk about that. I'm clearly you don't want to push this thing back. So what is it? What kind of input do you have with the franchise? What do you tell them with what you might want? And, I don't know how much you play into that side of it, but at a certain point you look at your career and you got to say, hey, I don't want to waste years of my career here.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a wasted year. It's always unfortunate when you can't make the playoffs and things like that. But every year, you have to approach it with the same mindset. And I think, for us in this franchise, it's about doing the things now. Everything you're doing is preparing to win now. Yes, you have younger guys. Yes, you have development processes that have to happen, but really holding ourselves accountable and kind of having that discipline of, it's not going to work 2 years down the line. It's going to happen now. This is our processes. These are the consequences if we don't meet them. And this is how we're going to act.
Jason Jones.
Hey, Harrison. Along those lines of the process and getting things going in the right direction, does it feel closer that you've made more steps in that direction this season as opposed to last season?
Yeah, and I think we've definitely we've had a lot of individual growth, like I said, amongst guys who've come in, guys who've been here, getting better, developing. But it has to show up in the wins and losses. It has to show up in our team being elevated. We've kind of, nailed on, career years and, discoveries and things like that. But how do we get ourselves, to being in the playoffs? How do we get ourselves to being, an over 500 team? How do we get ourselves into winning even when, we're not playing well?
And kind of follow up on that, it seems like a lot of times your success on the court, especially defensively, was tied to making shots. And when you guys were hitting shots, the defense seemed like it picked up. Is that a maturity? Do you at some point figure that out as a group to translate that into wins?
Yeah, it's 100% maturity. I mean, at the end of the day, there's going to be times when collectively we're not making shots. Individuals may be making shots, but collectively we may not be making shots, and we have to defend. And that's when I talk about our process of how do we consistently go out there and approach the game. If we're making shots, we're a top 10 defensive team. If we're missing shots, we're one of the worst defensive teams in NBA history. And, that can't be how we're going to live and die, as a group.
Sabrina Merchant.
Hey, Harrison, you mentioned that you think the rehab from this injury is going to take you into the start of the offseason. I'm curious if you anticipate that affecting your ability to be available for Team USA this summer?
No, I mean, I don't think that would affect my availability. I don't know whether or not I'll be on that roster or not, but I don't think it'll be well into July.
But that's still one of your goals this summer?
Yeah, I mean, if they have the opportunity to, play USA basketball, obviously would love to do that. I've done that in the past. I've had nothing but great experiences. But like I said, that decision is really not in my court.
Sean Cunningham.
What's up, sir? I know when you're talking about the season overall, the highs and lows, it kind of go from so many different ways. You guys experienced a lot. For you personally, where did this rank in terms of just being a frustrating season overall that you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, there's difficulty, and just feeling like we weren't achieving our potential. I've definitely been in situations, been in games where, it was simply like, look, we're playing hard. We just don't have the talent to beat the other team. We don't have the discipline. And for us this year, there were times where we did it, where we had the pieces coming together. We put together the stops. We put together the 2 or 3 games in a row. And it's like, look, we can do this with this group before the deadline and after the deadline. And that was the most frustrating thing about it, was that we could do it. We just couldn't do it consistently. So, for us, as players, talking about maturity, talking about defensively being consistent, talking about how do we go and approach this next season with the mentality that there can't be any more my bads, for however long during the game or during stretches of the season. How can we take that next step?
Yeah, and I mean, for you, you had some career highs in this season, but also your voice resonated a lot, not only with the team, but also with this community. And you were the recipient of the Triple-Double Award. I just wondered, what that moment meant to you, how gratifying it was to be kind of recognized in that way as both a member in this community, but also by this organization.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I got to the league, playing against Sacramento and then now being here, this community has been so tied in with this franchise. It's always one of the tougher places to play just because the fans were so crazy, and, to finally, be in this franchise and be embraced by the fans, by the community, it means a lot. It's a special thing to be able to play in a place where you feel that connection. You want to be a part of the community because of how they've embraced you. And, to receive the award last night, it just means a lot that, not only the franchise would feel that way, but just, from the fans that were in the arena last night, hearing their comments, the applause, things like that. Like I said, it's special.
Jason Anderson.
HB, congratulations on a strong year and on the baby as well. You're going to be a great dad.
Appreciate that.
You've been around the league. You're such a pro. You've seen good situations. I wonder what your perspective is on the winning culture conversation in Sacramento, what it's going to take and where this organization has still fallen short of that over the last couple of seasons. What is the honest assessment of why it hasn't happened here?
Yeah, I mean, there's work to do. Building a culture doesn't happen overnight. And, to say that guys have been in higher pressure situations, winning situations, really developing, in the years, it's tough when you don't make the playoffs. Guys can only get so far without actually experiencing, a 500 season, without actually experiencing that playoff atmosphere, without experiencing that moment where your team is in that situation, you fall short, but then collectively you're all like, okay, we want to take that next level. We want to get out of the first round or out of the second round or whatever that may be. So, for us, we really just have to be tied in and committed to that. Everything that a player wants to accomplish in this league is tied to winning. You want to accomplish stats. You want to be, respected among your peers. You want to be regarded as, a top player, at your position, just in the league in general. All of those things are tied with winning. And I think as a group, collectively, I think when that is the most important focus and, when we want to get to that point, it'll happen. And we have the talent to do it. It's just a matter of, do we have the maturity, the focus, and the mentality?
Do you see steps, whether it's players amongst yourselves or the coaching staff, front office, et cetera, in your time here? Are you seeing steps that are moving this thing in that direction?
Now, there's definitely steps that are happening to make that happen. But as all of you know, the reality is that we are in a playoff drought. I mean, this franchise has probably heard a lot of people like myself who've come up here and said these exact same things and seen more or less the same. So I'm not going to say that, everything has changed overnight, because it hasn't, but I think steps are being taken to have a winning culture, to have an ecosystem of accountability, and hopefully that will continue to grow.
We'll go to Kamani.
Hey, Harrison. Congrats on to you and Brittany on your child, and congrats on the award last night. And a follow-up kind of to Sean's question, how do you feel the franchise has done in its mission towards social justice? I know it's been kind of tough with the pandemic, but what are your thoughts on the franchise's work towards the mission towards social justice? I have a follow-up.
I think the Kings have done a great job, not only just being tied into the community, but being one of the franchises in the NBA who's taken a lead role in terms of being vocal, having interactions, really using their platform to elevate voices in the community, on our team, in our franchise. I think that's really important. So as a player, I'm happy to, be associated with this team, just because I know that, from the top down, from a leadership perspective, we're going out there and trying to be involved. That said, obviously there's a lot of work to be done, and, you constantly have to evolve. You constantly have to be able to respond in different situations. And I think this franchise is committed to doing that, for the long haul.
Right. Well, I hate to challenge y'all on that, but, as a person who's coming from that intersection, I was born on crack in 1989. I grew up in foster care. I was kicked out the day I turned 18. I was not allowed to fulfill my contract this season because the way the media relations team has been treating me. And my brother just died in a tent a month ago. So I couldn't afford to help him. I couldn't afford to fix my car. I was not allowed to fulfill my contract this season by your media relations team, who knows my background. you guys don't know my background. I've only shared this with a few players, and it's not about me, but there's oversight and there's ignorance. And from my perspective, that work that the franchise is doing is very performative. And so, I hate to challenge you on that, but my experience with this work is not what your experience is. We're at the opposite ends of the coin on that. So, I know I'm just dumping this information on you, but it's tough for me to agree with you on that. So what's your perspective on kind of the work to be done, as you've said? And I'll take that off.
Yeah, well, I mean, first, I want to say I'm obviously sorry for your loss. I know that's very difficult. It's been a very difficult time for, a lot of people who've lost somebody close to them throughout this time. So I never want to just gloss over that fact. I think the loss of life, especially someone close to you, is something that takes time. So I want to just obviously give my condolences out to you and your family on that. In terms of the work, though, I can understand your perspective on that. And like I said, with the second part of what I was saying is that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. I definitely understand the criticism that the work that this franchise is doing is performative. The same criticism that a lot of players receive, that our tweets and our Instagram posts and us marching and our donations is also performative. But I guess my question is, if what the actions that we're doing is performative, then how can real work be done? So and I'll just use myself as an example, right? If I'm at a protest, if I'm making a donation, if I'm doing something like that, and I genuinely want to affect change and I want to help the community, there may be a certain group that sees that as me helping, but then there may be another group that says, well, he hasn't helped us, so that's performative. And my thing is saying, I'm not saying that everything that the Kings have done is perfect, but I'm saying that they're committed to doing the work. And if you have any suggestions for me, like I said, I can't speak for the franchise, but for me, I'd be happy to hear it.
I'll help you get out of this, actually. So,
Kamani,
for example,
we need to move on to questions.
Okay, right. Well, let me just clear this up. 70% of the prison population in California is former foster. 83% of our Sacramento County budget goes to sheriff department and sheriff resources. These are things that we can address as a team in the media circuit, as players, as the franchise. These are all things we can take on. These are that's part of the responsibility that we have. That's all I have to say. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
I believe there was just one more. There was a Zoom not too long ago after the verdict was laid down in the George Floyd trial that I gave about funding of the police, defunding the police, and how that is tied with justice as what was being said during that time. So what you're saying about police budgets and where the criminal justice footprint is in this community, I've spoken about those things, and I'm happy to talk with you about them offline anytime you want.
Last one, Crystal Saltis.
Hello, Harrison. How are you?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm fine, thank you. I would like to ask you, as one of the most experienced guys, as one of the vets of that team, how excited and how optimistic you are about the young core of your team, and what are the expectations about next season from your perspective?
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about the growth of Tyrese, Fox, Marvin, Rob, Jemias, Justin James, Kyle Guy, all of our young guys who've Jamezi Metu, who've come in, Damian Jones, who've come in and worked hard this year and gotten better. It's not easy with how our season's gone for a young guy to come in and develop, to get consistent minutes, to go out there and produce. And I commend all of those guys for each individually battling through ups and downs, through injuries, through the rookie bumps and bruises and things like that. And they're all hard workers. I'm confident that they'll continue to get better. I think that young group has something special brewing off the court, just in terms of relationships, but on the court as well.
And about your role in that team, how you approach that, and how you comfortable you feel with that on that role, especially off the court.
You were asking how do I approach my role in the team?
About your role in the team, especially off the court.
Yeah, I mean, I try to, one, lead by example, just in terms of my work ethic and how I just go about, my business. But more importantly, just using my voice, letting these guys know experiences that I've been through, what I'm seeing, things that they can do to get better. Just realizing that, we need as many people in the boat rowing in the same direction as possible, for us to get where we need to be as a group.
Appreciate it.
Hey, HB, have you checked Hassan for bringing the Black Falcon thing back?
Man, I had to get on about the no confusion hoodies. He's been wearing it and saying he's got it for the team, and I'm just wondering where my hoodie was. That was my biggest thing.
All right, man.
Appreciate it, guys.